So, dear students, we will start with the first chart. We talk about using would to express a repeated action in the past. So here we have two things. So we have the first thing, which is repeated action in the past. So we are going to talk about an action that was repeated in the past. And the model we can use for this kind of situation is the model would. Okay, just would. Okay, without to. Okay, would to express a repeated action in the past. For example, when I was a child, my father would read me a story at night before bedtime. So when I was a child, at that time, there was a kind of a repeated action that my father used to do, which is would read me a story at night before bedtime. When I was a child, my father used to read me a story. So normally, the famous type of model that we use for this kind of repeated action in the past is the model used to. Okay, used to followed by a verb. Used to read me, used to do something, whatever. Now what we learn in this chart is that we can also use the model would followed by the verb for expressing a repeated action in the past. So would can be used to express an action that was repeated regularly, like a habit in the past. Okay, habit in the past, like habitual. So when we have like this kind of situation, it's kind of habitual past. Repeated action in the past, it has the same meaning as this. Okay, repeated action means habitual past, habitual action in the past. Next examples, I used to live, he used to be a Boy Scout, and he used to have a fort. Now here we have to be very careful. Okay, we have to be careful. So in the first examples A and B, we are talking about habitual action in the past. Okay, it was an action. And here I have to remind you about what we have studied in the previous semester when we talked about present simple, present progressive. We have talked about what we call action verbs and stative verbs. Now, action verbs, it means a verb that expresses a kind of action, like for example, read, like the action of the verb break, the verb walk, the verb speak, the verb run. All of these kinds of verbs were expressing an action. But when we say, for example, I like Ahmed, like here is not an action verb. It doesn't express an action. It simply expresses a situation that you have in your heart. I know Ahmed. I know Ahmed. The verb know here doesn't express an action. It simply expresses a situation that you have in your mind. So know and like are stative verbs, but read, walk, run, break, etc. They are action verbs. So when we are talking about a repeated action in the past, we can use would and we can use used to. We can use both of them. But when we are talking about a situation in the past, like here, I used to live in California. Live is a situation. Used to be a scout is a situation. To have a fort is a situation. You are simply expressing a situation in these three types of sentences. So in this case, you can't use would. You can use only used to followed by the simple form of the verb. Used to be, used to have. So to express past situations, okay, past situations or states by opposition to repeated actions in the past, habitual actions in the past. So in this case, we can use only used to is used, not would. It is not possible to use would for this kind of situation. This is it for the first chart of this second part on models. We continue with the next chart, which is about expressing necessity, advisability, and expectation. So we have already seen these in the first part. You remember necessity, talking about the expression that something is necessary when you want to express an advice and when you want to express expectation. Now what we want to do here is how can we express these types of modalities, attitudes in the past. Here we have a number of examples. We have present situation and we have past situation, present and future situation, opposition to a past situation. Now, for example, for necessity, if you remember, we have said that for expressing necessity, we can use the modal must, we can use the modal have to, we can use the modal have got to. These are the models we can use for expressing necessity. Now, in the present, here they are again. So we have has to get a visa, has got to get a visa, must get a visa. Julia has got to get a visa, Julia has got to get a visa, and Julia must get a visa. So this is how we can use necessity in the present or future. Now, if you want to express the same thing for the past, necessity in the past, now there is only one model that we can use, which is the model had to for the three of them. So we can say Julia had to get a visa. Past necessity, this is the rule. We have only one model for the three of these here. We can simply say had to in the past. And the meaning is expressing necessity. Now, moving to advisability, if you remember, we have said that to express advice in the present, we have said that we can use the modal should, ought to, and had better. Here they are again. So you have, you should study for the test. I want to pass it. I want to pass it. I ought to study for the test. I had better study for the test. This is what we have said. Now, if we want to use this, express this advisability in the past, now this is the way to go. Okay, this is the rule. This is the rule for past advisability. So we have should, the modal should, or the modal have to, followed by auxiliary have in the present simple, and then followed by the past participle of the main verb, whatever verb you have. Now, example, I should have studied. Okay, so I should have studied. So here we have the modal should, followed by have, followed by the past participle of the main verb, which is studied. Another example, if you want to use ought to, I ought to have studied. It's the same thing. So we have the modal, ought to, followed by have, followed by past participle of the main verb. Negative form, you simply put the negation after the modal. Shouldn't, have, can't, and you apply the same rule again. Okay, now there is one thing we have to say before continuing to talk about expectation in the past is regarding had better. If you remember, we have also said before in part 1 that we can use the model had better for expressing advice. Now, this one, if you want to talk about advisability in the past, there is no possibility of using had better. It's almost never used. So this is it doesn't exist. We don't say that. Finally, we move to talk about expectations in the past. If you remember, we said that we can use the model be supposed to, okay, for expressing expectation. We are supposed to leave now. Now, the way how you can express expectation in the past for this type of model, simply you conjugate this auxiliary be here, you put it in the past, okay, and then you are going to say we were supposed to leave last week. Was, were, supposed to, are is the form for expressing expectations in the past. Now we simply need to be careful about the meaning, because there is a difference of meaning between present expectation and past expectation. Past expectation, we're talking basically about something that is not fulfilled, unfulfilled expectation or unfulfilled obligation. For example, when you say we were supposed to leave last week, it means last week you were supposed to leave, but in reality it didn't happen. You didn't leave. This is why we call it unfulfilled expectation. It didn't happen in reality, and fulfilled obligation, it didn't happen in reality in the past. Also, we talked about using should for expectation. So the may should be here. This is expressing expectation in the present. Now, if you want to use this one is a little bit different from be supposed to. It has the same rule as this one here. So we are going to use should plus have plus past participle. This is a rule. If you look here for past expectation, so you have should have plus past participle, the same as here. Should have plus by for advice is the same form. Should have past participle for expressing past expectation or expectation in the past. And this is it for this chart. The next chart, which talks about expressing ability in the past. Now you remember we have said that for expressing ability in the present we can use the modal can or be able to, etc. Now this is it. We have a recapitulation here. We have the modal can for present. I can speak Farsi for learn skill. Now the past, how do you do that? Simply you put or you conjugate the modal can into the past, and it becomes I could speak Farsi 10 years ago. In the past I could do this. Also we have said that we can use be able to, okay, in the present. So how you can make this in the past? Simply you put this auxiliary here, which is in the present, you put it into the past, and it becomes I was able to speak Farsi 10 years ago. Past ability, this is a rule for past ability. We use could, was, were, able to. This is simply what we can say about expressing ability in the past. Continue now with the next chart, which talks about expressing degrees of certainty in the present. So here we are going to talk about modality of certainty, sure, how much a person is sure, how much a person is certain about something. How can we express the different types of degrees of certainty in the present time? This is the chart. So we can either have the degrees that we can have, either 100% sure, and for this case we can use simply whatever verb we have. Like in this example we have he is sick. Okay, whatever verb you have, you put it, and when you are 100% sure about whatever you want to say. Next degree, when we are 95% sure, we use the modal must be. For example, he must be sick. When you have a logical conclusion or deduction about something and you are not 100% sure but you're almost there, 95% certain, so you use the modal must be sick. And when you are half-half, 50% sure or less, let's say you're not very much, you're a lot of doubts going on in your mind and your heart, so here you can use the modals may be, you can use the modal might, you can use the modal could be sick. So this is what we can say about degrees of certainty. For example, here, he must be sick. And we have said that we are 95% sure. Okay, a strong degree of necessity. But when we use may, he may be sick, he might be sick, could be sick. So here we have, this is the rule for this. When we have, we say might or may and could express a weak degree of certainty, but must, it expresses a strong degree of necessity. Okay, strong degree of necessity about some kind of situation, maybe sick. So these are the degrees of necessity in the present, of course. Okay. We continue with the next chart that talks about modals expressing degrees of certainty in present, but now we focus on the negative form. Okay, and there are a little bit of differences in the use of modals between the affirmative form, okay, and the negative form. So for regarding the level when we are 100% sure, like in this example here, Sam isn't hungry. Okay, so we do the same as we have said for the previous chart when we talk about degrees of certainty in the present in the affirmative form. So we simply take the verb and put the negation next to it when we are 100% sure. When we are a little bit less sure than that, and we are simply like 99% sure, which means almost 100% sure, there is a very little doubt about whatever statement you want to say. So here we use the modals couldn't be and can't be. And then we have the level when we are 95% sure. Here we use modals must be or must not be hungry. Sam must not be hungry. You are also very much certain, but not 100%. There is a little bit of doubt in there. And when you are half again, yeah, there is a lot of doubt going on in your mind and heart, like 50% sure or less. So we use the modals may not, might not be. Sam may not be hungry. Sam might not be hungry. And here we have, in these sentences, we simply have elaboration of these examples here. Sam doesn't want anything to eat. He isn't angry. He told me his stomach is full. I heard him say that he isn't angry. I believe him. Now, in this sentence, there is a proof, a very strong proof, okay, that he is hungry. I heard him say that he isn't hungry, and that's why I am very much sure about the fact that he isn't hungry. So that's why I use the verb is with the negative or the negation, because I am very much sure. I heard him say that, so I am very much sure, 100% sure. There is no doubt about it. In the next statement, Sam couldn't or can't be hungry. That's impossible. I just saw him eat a huge meal. So here, for example, this person speaking saw Sam doing or eating a huge meal. And we know that, naturally speaking, a human being, when he eats a huge meal, of course, the person isn't hungry after that. Okay, he's full. He can't eat anymore. So there is a very high percentage of certainty here, which is like 99% sure, but still not totally sure. So we use the modals couldn't or can't be hungry. Then Sam isn't eating his food. He must not be hungry. That's the only reason I can think of. So here there is no proof for me to be very much sure, but I'm simply making a logical guess, logical conclusion about Sam, because why he is not eating now. I'm saying that he must not be hungry now, okay? But then when we are very much doubtful, that is, we are 50% sure and less, now we can use may not, might not be hungry, okay? So this is for expressing degrees of certainty in the present negative form, okay? With the next chart about degrees of certainty now in the past. So we also have the same thing as we have had before in the previous chart when we talked about degrees of certainty in the present. So we talked about degrees of certainty in the present in the affirmative form and degrees of certainty in the present with the negative form. So the same thing is applicable here. We're going to do the same thing and see how degrees of certainty in the past within affirmative form, what are the models used, as we have this two rubrics here. Okay, this is the first one, affirmative, and then past time with the negative form. So if we are 100% sure, so we use simply whatever verb we have, we put it in the past. For example, here we say she was sick. Then when we are 95% sure, almost sure, there is a lot of certainty going on, but not totally certain, we use this structure, must have been. So we use the modal must, followed by have, followed by been, and then you use it in a sentence. She must have been sick in the past. And when we are there's a lot of doubt going on in our mind and heart, we are 50% sure or less, we use may, might, and could, and we use the auxiliary have been with it. Okay. This is the way how we can use models for degrees of certainty in the past affirmative form. Now, if we go into the past time, degrees of in the past time negative form. So again, we have when we are 100% sure, we simply put the verb as we have. We conjugate it, sorry, into the past. So Sam wasn't hungry. If we are 90% sure, Sam couldn't have been hungry. We use the modal could, followed by have, followed by been, and can't have been. Okay, when we are almost sure. When we are 95% sure, we say must not have been hungry, because in this case we use the modal must, but since we are talking about past time negative, must not have been hungry. Finally, when we are 50%, when we are 50% sure or less, so we use the modal may, and we use also the modal might, and then in this case we have to follow it with the negation, and then followed by the auxiliary have, okay, and then followed by the past participle of the verb that you have in the sentence. Sam may not have been hungry. Sam might not have been hungry. These are the models for expressing degrees of certainty in the past affirmative and negative forms. We continue with the next chart, models expressing degrees of certainty in the future. Now, the degrees we can have for the future, we can have 100% sure. Okay, same thing as we have said with the previous charts. We simply take the verb that we have, whatever verb we have, we use it and we put will. Okay, we conjugate it into the future simple. K will do well on the tests, because the person speaker feels sure, 100% sure, because of some reason. So K will do well on the test. 90% sure, there's a little bit of doubt going on, so we simply use the modal followed by the infinitive without to. K should do well on the test, so we use the modal should, or we can use the modal ought to. K ought to do well on the test. The speaker is almost sure, okay, 90% sure. We use the modals should do, ought to, and remember here we are talking about degrees of certainty for the future. Okay, we're talking about future here. These kinds of scenarios, these kinds of statements, okay, they are about the future. And finally, when we are less than that, we are 50% sure or less about our statements, we can use the modals may, might, could. Okay, and then followed by the simple form of the verb. She may do well on the test. The speaker is guessing. It is simply a guess. It's not sure. Could happen, it could not happen. She might do well on the test. She could do well on the test. This is how we can use models for expressing degrees of certainty in the future. Okay, the next chart will talk about using progressive forms. Is it possible to use models in a progressive form? Let's say something that takes time. The answer is yes. Okay, we can use models in progressive forms. Example we have here. We have knock on the door lightly. Tom may be sleeping right now. So at this moment, there is the possibility that Tom is sleeping, okay? And we can use the model may be sleeping, okay? How? Model plus be plus ing form. It is similar to the use of present progressive, okay? Where you have I am going, I am sleeping, I am eating it, etc. Now the only difference is that here we have to have a model, okay, model before be and before the ing form of the verb. All of the lights in Anne's room are turned off. She must be sleeping right now. So another way, another example of model, okay, making a logical conclusion about Anne. So she must be sleeping right now. So we have the model followed by be, followed by the ing form of the verb, meaning it is in action, in progress right now. This is progressive form of modals. Sue wasn't home last night when we went to see her. She might have been studying. She might have been studying. Now, in these examples, we talked about progressive forms in the present. Okay, Tom may be sleeping right now. She must be sleeping right now. Okay, progressive forms of modals in the present. Now, here we have an example of progressive form of modals in the past. Okay, so Sue wasn't home last night, okay? Wasn't home last night when we went to see her. So last night, our guess is that she might have been studying at the library. So what is the rule? This is the rule for expressing progressive forms in the past. We have the modal, followed by have been, followed by the ing form of the verb. Might have been studying. She might have been studying at the library. Joe wasn't home last night. He has a lot of exams coming up soon, and he is also working on a term paper. He must have been studying at the library. So this is the progressive forms of modals, present and in the past. In this chart, which is very short, we answer the question if we could combine modals with phrasal modals. That's why, can we use a model that's composed of one word next to a model that's composed of 2 or 3 words? Is it possible? The answer is that it is not possible in some cases, and it is possible in other cases. For example, if you say John, Jane, Jane will can help you. For example, here you have will and then followed by another model. So here you have 2 models in a row. Will followed by another model, which is can. This is not correct. It's not possible to do. So a common or rule, which is that a model cannot be immediately followed by another model. So you can never say, for example, you should, must, you ought to, have to. Okay, never ever. Now we can never do that. But there is the possibility of saying this: Janet will be able to help you tomorrow. A model can, however, be followed by the phrasal modals like be able to and have to. If you can, the only way how you can combine modals with phrasal modals is when you say a model that is composed of one word, like in this case will, and then plus, plus this one, be able to, phrasal model. A model is composed of more than one word. Here you have phrasal model, be able to. So in this case, it is possible to combine one word model with multi-word model, phrasal model. We can will have to. So here you have will, and then you have plus, and then have to. So here you have to. It is composed of more than one word. Will is one word model. So this is possible. You can combine them. A model can, however, be followed by phrasal modals, be able to and have to. Tom isn't going to be able to help. This is also a possibility which you can use. Instead of saying Tom will be able to, you can use the model will, or you can use the model isn't going to. It's also possible to do that. This is the answer for our question if we could combine models with phrasal models. Chart, we talk about expressing models that are used for expressing preference, and here we talk about the use of the model would rather, okay, would rather. So would rather, it means you use it when you want to express a preference. You prefer something over something else. Example, I would rather go to a movie tonight than study grammar. This person who is speaking here, he prefers going to a movie rather than studying grammar. So I would rather go than study. So here we need to be careful when we use this would rather. We have to do this, then we have to complete it. They go together. Another example, I'd rather study history than study biology. So here we have the model. Would rather study, you prefer this over studying biology. So we have to complete it. We have to say then what? I would rather do something than something else. So they go together. We can't just say I would rather study history, I would rather, okay? And this would rather, as we have said, expresses a preference. You prefer something over something else. Next example, the movie was okay, but I would rather have gone to the concert last night. Now here, in these two sentences here, we are talking about would rather in the present. Now in this sentence, we are talking about would rather in the past, okay? This is how you do it. You use the model, would rather, followed by have, followed by the past participle of the main verb. So this is the past form of would rather, okay? Like what we have seen before for should and other models. So the past form is would rather plus have plus past participle. So when we want to express a preference about something in the past, okay, you prefer to do something over something else, we use this rule here, okay? And finally, the progressive form, if you want to use would rather in a progressive tense, long action or action in progress, the rule is would rather plus be and plus ing. This is how you do it. Example, I'd rather be lying on a beach in India than be sitting in class right now. So here we have the progressive form, would rather, followed by be, followed by past verb ing form. And we have to not to forget this, that we have to complete the sentence, then doing something else. They go together when we want to express a preference using would rather. And by this chart, we finish the last chapter, or the second chapter on models, or part 2. Thank you very much.